Hi everyone, it's Christine here from Ever After Paper Crafts, and today I'm going to be showing you how I created this fun floral card using these gorgeous peonies from W+9. Let me show you the stamp set we're going to be using today. This is a new release, relatively new release. I think it's their latest release from a month or maybe ago, and it's called Modern Peonies from W+9, and it's absolutely beautiful. And I'm going to be showing you how I colored one of the larger ones and then one of these that's kind of facing to its side and one of the leaves, although I used 3 different leaves in my final card. But to make the video go a little quicker, I'm going to condense it just a little bit. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to show you how I created this fun background. So let's go ahead and get started. To do the background, all I did was I first cut a rectangle using a stitched rectangle die. Mine happens to be from Lawn Fawn. You can use any rectangle die that you have in your stash, or just cut your paper down with your paper trimmer to a size that you would like. So here's my rectangle that I have cut out. Let me move this aside. Now, to create this fun background, I will be using this gorgeous new stencil from Simon Says Stamp. This one is called Circular Lace, and it's new, and I absolutely love it. So let me just get it out of its packaging here, and I'll show you how I did this. So what I'm going to do is bring some scratch paper over, and this is just some scratch grid paper that I have from Stampin' Up. And then I'm going to position the stencil how I want it on my piece of cardstock. And this is Bristol Smooth cardstock that I am using for this stencil technique. Bristol Smooth is my favorite cardstock to use for any type of ink blending. And I also will be doing my zig coloring of the flowers on the Bristol Smooth as well. So once I have it positioned, I'm going to turn it over, and I'm going to use some micropore tape to tape the stencil to the back of my cardstock, so that the stencil will stay in place while I do my inking. If you don't have micropore tape, you can use Post-it note tape, you can use sticky notes, whatever you have that's a very low-tack tape that will keep this stencil in place for you so it won't be moving around while you're trying to do your blending. Now, I used 2 different Distress ink colors for this. I used Worn Lipstick and the Distress Oxide ink, and I used Picked Raspberry. And Picked Raspberry, Ranger just came out with Picked Raspberry and the Distress Oxide ink. Unfortunately, mine will be here tomorrow, so I'm going to be using the regular Distress ink today. I had a viewer ask me at one point why I would reach for the Oxide inks over the regular Distress inks. The main reason is just because these blend so beautifully that if I have a color in the Oxide ink, I'm going to reach for it just out of habit because they're so easy to use. But as you will see from what we're about to do, you can mix the Distress Oxides and the regular Distress inks together just fine. There's no problem doing that. And also, this technique will work with any kind of inks that you may have, as long as you have a good blending tool and you're able to get a good blend on your cardstock. So don't feel like you can't try this if you don't have Distress inks or Distress Oxide inks. This is just simple ink blending that we're going to be doing, and the stencil really makes the work easy because we're not going to be blending a whole big part of, a whole big piece of paper with just inks. It's going to be broken up by the stencil, which is going to make it a little bit easier. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do kind of like a gradation of the lighter pink down to the darker pink, and it's going to be very subtle. Plus the flowers are going to be covering the bottom anyway, so it's just kind of for fun that I'm doing it this way. You could really just use one color if you wanted to. So I'm just going to lightly go over this image here that we have, the stencil rather, on the cardstock, and I'm going lightly with my Worn Lipstick Distress Oxide ink. I don't want to go too rough because I don't want the stencil to move. Even though I have that micropore tape down, it could still move if I'm too rough with it because it is a very low tack tape. So I'm going hard enough so that obviously the ink will go through the stencil, but light enough so that I don't kind of tear at the stencil or cause it to move in any way. Now I'm going to dip into my Picked Raspberry ink and kind of just scooch this over this way, and I'm going to start at the bottom here and work my way up so that these colors meet in the middle, and then we'll work on creating that middle and as making it a very what am I trying to say? Kind of a smooth transition from the light pink to the darker pink. And I'll show you what I mean by that in just a moment. So here we are with the picked raspberry, the darker of the pinks, really going along the bottom here to make it really dark so it'll kind of contrast with the light. Make sure that you get your blending tool in all of the little crevices of the stencil. This particular stencil is very detailed, so definitely make sure that you are, if you have this particular stencil, just go over it a few times to make sure you don't leave any spots out. It would be very easy to do that with such a detailed stencil by accident. Now I'm going to go back in with my lighter color, which is the Worn Lipstick. I'm going to just kind of go over it again and then really hit hard this middle section and really blend it with the darker ink, so that we get a nice smooth transition. What you don't want is a harsh line in the middle that separates the two colors. You want it to just very effortlessly ease from one color to the next. So that's kind of what we're going for, and why I like to go back with that light color and really blend that middle section out. So we are almost done now. I'm just making sure that I have good color in all of the crevices of the stencil, and I'm going to go do the bottom a little bit as well, because like I said, this stencil is so detailed that it can be very easy to miss a little section here or there. So now what I want to do to make sure that I have inked it properly and that I haven't missed a section, I'm going to very carefully lift it up, kind of look at half of it up here, half of it down here. I'm very happy with that, so I'm going to peel the stencil off, and this is what we have. Isn't that pretty? It's just so beautiful, I think. Such a beautiful, detailed stencil, and I just really, really love it. So this is kind of what you're left with for a very inexpensive. Stencils, as you probably know, are very inexpensive, and with you know, a $6.99 or something like that stencil and a little bit of ink, you can really create your own backgrounds, which makes the necessity of buying so much design paper, even though it's fun, don't get me wrong, to buy design paper, I mean, you can really create your own backgrounds very easily and inexpensively. So, and plus it just gives it a little bit of a different look for just something different. So I just kind of wanted to do that today and show you guys quickly how I did that. And now to clean your stencil, all you need to do, and I'm just putting away my distress inks right now, all you'll need to do is just put your stencil on some scratch paper and take a baby wipe and just lightly go over the entirety of the stencil with the baby wipe, and it will take all of that ink off. Some of the ink may stain the stencil, and that's okay. That will not in any way harm the stencil or impair the stencil's ability to work. That stain is not going to come off on your future projects or anything like that, so don't worry about that at all. But a baby wipe for me does the trick. If you don't have baby wipes near your station, you can also, of course, just run this under some cold water with maybe a little bit of soap to get it all nice and clean. And so there's our stencil, guys, and here's the beautiful background that we created. Super simple. As you can see on my original one, I went a little bit lighter handed, so it's a little bit lighter than this one, but either way I think they're both quite lovely and would make beautiful backgrounds for any type of card that you're doing. So let's set this aside, and the second part of this video I want to quickly show you how I colored these flowers. Now normally when I do my floral coloring with my zig markers, I really like to emboss with white embossing powder and then color with the zigs. However, this time around I thought I'd try something different just to mix it up. I knew I was going to have my sentiment on black cardstock, so I thought, well, I'll just ink them in black like I would any other image, a mermaid image or whatever I've been coloring lately, and just give it a different look. I did want to show you what it looks like heat embossed with white, and I honestly think that I like that better, and will probably continue to do the white embossing in the future. I just think it's such a gorgeous look to it that you really can't beat it. So I did want to show you, I kind of was maybe a little disappointed at the end, and so I just stamped the images again just to have a little bit more fun with it and do some embossing. So I'll put these on a card later, but the same technique applies. Whether you're coloring with the zigs on embossed flower or a black flower, you're going to be coloring them with the zigs the same way. But I did just want to show you how gorgeous these look with that white embossing. It's just such a beautiful look to it. It really is just gorgeous. But today I stamped them in black, and so that's what I'm going to show you. So I've already gone ahead and stamped them onto some Bristol Smooth cardstock, and I'm just going to make this paper a little smaller real quick here and just cut the top off there. I can use that scrap for future stamping. And I only used a few colors for this entire card. For this middle flower, I simply used light pink for all of the petals, and I put regular pink in the middle. For this orangish flower over here, I created my own color, which I'll show you how to do in a moment. And I used peach pink and orange to create a third beautiful color that's part orange and part pink, and it's beautiful. And then for this flower over here, I did pink and light pink, and then some orange in the middle. And then for all of the leaves, I only used olive green. So really simple. As I've said in so many videos in the past, you can buy just a few zig markers and get beautiful shading and beautiful results. So enough babbling from me. Let's go ahead and do some coloring. And I first want to show you how I did this color and used my markers like I would paints, watercolor paints, to mix them on a palette almost. You can think of it that way. Pretend like these are actual paints, and you can mix them together to create beautiful results, beautiful new colors that don't already exist in the markers. So what I'm going to do is I'm first going to color this one and show you how we did that new kind of color. So again, for this flower, I used peach pink and orange, and of course my water brush. You can use your water brush on Bristol Smooth cardstock if you're more comfortable. You've seen me in past videos use Canson XL watercolor paper as well. The main trick when you're using Bristol Smooth and your water brush, go light on the water. You could also use a paintbrush, but just go light. Don't squeeze it too much. Don't let too much water seep out, because this is not watercolor paper, but it's so smooth that the color just glides on, and a littlest bit of water will just create beautiful results. So to go ahead and start this coloring here, what I'm going to do is scribble down just some orange first. It's the darker of the two colors. And I'm imagining that the light source is not really coming from a particular direction when I do florals. I just more think of how are the petals themselves nested within each other, and where would it be darkest. So here you can see this petal's coming up and this petal's coming up this way. So in here, this little crevice right here is certainly going to be shaded. So I don't take too much time to think about it, but I do just kind of look for those little crevices and craters and where it's going to be darkest and where I think it's going to be the lightest. So I kind of think like the tops of the petals, most of the petals anyway, are going to be lighter in color than the darks, than the bottom of the petals, which are going to be darker because they're nestled amongst other petals coming up, if that makes any sense at all. So I put my orange down first, and then my peach pink kind of on top of the orange. Usually I would put a color right next to it, but because I'm mixing these two colors, I kind of put it right on top. And I create this gorgeous, gorgeous kind of third color that still has shading with it. Let me bring this up to the camera. So we still have, and it's a little hard to see on the camera here, but we still have a darker color along the bottom, and it fades to lighter at the top. But it's a color that doesn't exist within the markers themselves. So it's kind of fun to use these to mix your own colors. So again, I'm going to be scribbling some orange, take my peach pink, and sometimes if you do a little more of the peach pink than the orange, you can get the orange to be a little bit more pinkish in color. And I'm going to do that right now. And you can just play with it and create such fun, unique colors, unique to your imagination. You can really do, the world is an oyster with these zig markers. I just love it. So I'm going to do a couple petals at a time now, just to slightly speed up the process. So we put down some orange. Now we're going to put some pink over top. This one I'm going to do a bit more pink, simply because I really like that orangey pink with a little bit more pink than orange to it. I just think it's beautiful. But you can see here, hopefully it's showing up on the camera, how you still get that beautiful shading. It's still darker at the bottom and lighter at the top, which is fantastic, which is what we're looking for when we do any kind of coloring. We want that shading, the highlights, to highlight that some colors, that some areas rather of the image are in shadow, whereas others are light. It really makes the image appear almost three-dimensional and pop off of our paper. And that's kind of what we're looking for when we do any kind of coloring, with if it's Copics or watercolor pencils or anything like that. We really like to see, that shift in color from lighter to darker spaces to give it that three-dimensional look. So again, this is so easy. Anyone can use these markers, I promise you. I'm literally just scribbling a little line down of orange, scribbling a little bit of pink on top of that and a little bit above that, and you can do more pink if you want to make it a little bit pinkier than orangier. and then pull the color up with your water brush to color in the rest of the white space. So super, super easy. And look how pretty that is. I just think it's absolutely gorgeous. Now, because I don't want this video to be super long, I'm just going to quickly show you how I did this one. Now, in my original card, let me bring that back over. I have two different colors of the large flower, and I've zoomed in, so it's a little difficult to see. There we go. Forgive it being so zoomed in for a moment, but I just wanted to bring the original card back over for just a second. On this one, I just used light pink on the flower. I wanted to show you how you can get beautiful shading with just one marker. This one, I used light pink and regular pink, and again, you get beautiful shading. But if you only have one color, I want to show you that it's perfectly possible to achieve. And I'm going to do a little bit of both on this just to show you what I mean. So I'm going to do a couple petals with just light pink. So here down where kind of the middle of the flower, the whole flower is going to be darker because all of these little thingamajigs, can't think of the name right now, in the center of the flower are going to be kind of shading and a little bit of, they're going to be kind of casting some shadow and shade onto the bottom of this particular petal. So I put the darker, you know, the marker where it's going to be darker down there, and I'm using the water brush to fill out the remainder of the white space on that petal to give us some really nice shading. And again, I'm just using one petal color here. I'm sorry, one marker color for the petal here. Now this next petal, and I do go petal by petal. It just kind of helps me figure out where to put the color, but you don't have to do that. You can do it much quicker than I am. So I feel like it's going to be shaded, you know, right here at the bottom of this petal because this petal is on top of it casting a shadow. So I'm going to put the marker there, and where you put the marker is obviously going to be darkest, and then you use your water brush to pull that color up in a circular motion or a pushing motion depending on what you're more comfortable with, or a combination of both, and pull the color up into the empty space. And again, I'm going to now kind of come over. Let's do this petal down here. Make sure I'm still on frame. Let's see. Okay, and let's do this one right here. So you can kind of see I'm scribbling on just a line of color, and then I'm taking my water brush and pulling the color up to cover the rest of the petal with some color. And now let me bring this up a little bit more to the camera, and you can see with one marker color I have created some really pretty shading there. And then let me just show you quickly how you can do it with two colors. So we're going to be now using pink first. Always put your darker color first. That works best for me. And let's just pick this petal here. Put just a little bit. The less marker that you put down, the more dramatic your shading is going to be. So I put just a little bit of the pink. Now I'm coming in with the light pink, pulling that regular pink color out. And now I'm going to take my water brush, and I'm not going to go all the way back into the first pink that we put down, just to what we've mixed, and pull that out with my water brush to cover up the rest of the petal. I hope that makes sense. And hopefully you can see what I'm doing on the video as well, since I'm so zoomed in. Let's do this petal down here. This is kind of a larger petal, which hopefully you can see what I'm talking about. I'm putting just a little bit of marker down. Again, the less marker you put, the more dramatic your shading is going to be. And I like dramatic shading, so I just put just a tiny bit of color. Now in a circular motion, I'm going in with my light pink, and I'm pulling that dark pink out. I'm going to put some light pink here as well, because it's going to be dark right here. Now I'm going to take my water brush. I'm not going to go all the way back to where this darkest pink color is, but where we've mixed it, and then just pull it out with the circular motion or a pulling or pushing motion, and just get that ink to move on the paper. And the Bristol Smooth is great. That ink will move on Bristol Smooth just like it will on watercolor paper. And now I have created some really pretty shading. Let's do one more petal, and then I'll show you how I did the leaf. So let's do this one here. I'm going to put a little bit of the darkest color, which is pink, along this way. And then here's kind of like a little ripple in the petal, so I'm going to put some dark there as well. With my light pink, I'm going to, in a circular motion, blend where I've put down the dark, just blend some of the light color into it. And then with the light color, go along the rest of the bottom here. And then use my water brush to fill in all of those spaces. And I hope that I'm making sense. It's so difficult sometimes to explain what I'm doing, which is why I just try to just do it with you guys in real time instead of just, you know, fast forwarding through it. because there is some, there is a learning curve to these markers, but once you get the hang of it, it is so easy, I promise, and you really get pretty results. So there you have it. There's kind of what it would look like with the two colors, and then here's just the light pink by itself. Finally, I just want to show you quickly how I did the leaves with an olive green color. All the leaves were only done with one marker, and that's olive green. So I kind of see that the base of the leaf down here is certainly going to be darkest, and then there's always going to be a little dark in the middle of the leaf where the kind of line is. So I've just scribbled some ink down with my marker, and then I'm just taking my water brush and pulling the color into the white spaces that exist. And this will just on its own, with the water brush doing most of the work, give you a really pretty shaded leaf. And again, I did this with all the different leaves in the stamp set. I stamped them all and, just kind of stuck them randomly underneath the flowers on my card. And I used that color for all of them. Super easy. How easy was that? So that's it, guys. Again, here is the little background that we created with that beautiful stencil and some distress inks. And then here's a little bit of coloring that we did. In this one, we created our own color. And in this one, we just used the marker colors that we have. We did our little leaf. And here is the final card again. So it's just really pretty to create your own background, I think. I really like doing that. You get a lot more out of your supplies doing it that way. To finish the card, I simply used Happy Birthday, which comes in the stamp set. You have a happy here, and then you could do wishes or wedding or birth. There's lots of different sentiments on here. I just used birthday. I heat embossed the sentiment with white embossing powder and then just put them on small pieces of black cardstock. I did add some white Morning Dew Nuvo drops on the petals here, on some of the petals. It's going to be hard to see on the video, but it will show up in the pictures that it will be on my blog, and I will link to my blog in the description box of this video. And then I added some sequins as well. I cut out one larger rectangle in a pink colored cardstock from Simon Says Stamp, put everything onto a standard A2 size 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 note card, and that's it. So I really hope that you guys enjoyed this video, that you'll give some of these tips a try, some of these techniques a try. And if you have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to email me or drop me a comment. I'm happy to help you guys in any way that I can. Again, I'm not claiming to be an expert in any way. This is just how I do it. If you like how I do it, then hopefully I'm able to help you. So have a great day, guys. Thank you so much as always for watching. I would be thrilled if you liked this video, gave it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Thank you so much for all of your support here, and I will catch you in the next video. Bye-bye.